As you can see in the video, we are here to talk about a chopper. In fact, a chopper set up for one-armed riding. This is what I would call a Kawasaki mongrel. That's the only way to describe it. It's a mixture of parts. At the back, there's an XS650 wheel. The engine is from a 1982 Z750 twin M1 configuration. The front end, I believe, is off a Z400 from 1979, and the frame number is for the same, i.e. it's a 79 Z400, and it's really just a big old bitzer. I bought the bike. Why did I buy the bike? I'd already done one chopper. I did an Uncle Bunt chopper about 9 months earlier. Quite enjoyed the experience, and I'd also done a Z550 the year before and enjoyed that. So I thought, oh, I fancy doing another quite quick, easy, over the winter build. So I saw this Z750 online. I thought, oh, big twin. So it'd be like a Bonnie, but with electric start. That'll be great. Nice and easy, something I can deal with. Doesn't look like it needs too much. Look, I could see in the pictures needed some forward controls on it, and it needed some front engine mounts. But apart from that, kind of looked all there. So bought it sight unseen, of course, online. Got the bike home and thought, yeah, that looks okay. I know where there's a local custom bike shop, and went and had a look there and had a chat, and they said, yeah, bring it in. We can sort out some forwards and front engine mounts. You'll be good to go. Had it picked up. They had it for about a week and said, you better come and have a look at this. It's like, oh? And he said, yeah, it's not good news. And as you can see in the picture, the frame had been notched badly. Turns out, what I think originally it was built around a Z400 engine, hence the chassis number and the front end. Somebody at some point decided it'd be a good idea to stick a Z750 motor in, and oh dear, it don't fit. So they just notched the top tube. Not only that, at some point that snapped and it had been re-welded. So had to make some decisions, and the first thing they said was, I suggest we get it dipped and we can see what else is going on, because there's quite a lot of filler in the frame. Had it dipped, and it was a bit of a horror story, really. The original frame hadn't been built on a jig. None of the lines were straight. No. Each side of the frame was different to the other. A few degrees out here and a few degrees out there, and basically it was junk. So the decision was made, have a new frame built on a jig that takes into account the size of the engine, and just take what is needed off the old frame and then throw it in the bin. So all that came off the old frame was a set of axle plates and headstock. The rest of it was just binned. So the work started, and it went reasonably well. The frame was jigged up, but the work was kind of slow. Every now and again there would be a bit more progress, but really not much. And I would be asked for some more money from the fabricator, and this went on for a number of years, shall we say. Also, what was tending to happen was the work that was actually being done I wasn't that happy with. I wasn't particularly happy with the way the forward controls had been mounted on the frame, wasn't wildly happy with the seat pan, wasn't happy with the forward control setup, and so it felt like the workmanship was slipping and was getting bodged through. Now, unknown to me at this point, the person doing the fabrication was basically taking the money and doing nothing. And he wasn't doing it just with me, but with a large number of people. Turned out he was a bit of a con artist, and I ended up paying out, hundreds, and got nothing for it, really. He ripped other people off far worse than me, I wasn't particularly happy, but because it was on the back burner, I was busy with other projects. So I had an iron-head chop I was doing, the BSA chop I was doing, and so I kind of put it to the back of my mind and didn't really do anything about it. Basically, the bloke did a bunk. He left owing thousands in rent and hundreds to the likes of me and other people. So luckily I got the bike back with most of the parts as well. And I thought, oh dear, what am I going to do about this? Well, who do I trust? Now, the only person really that I trust is Nick. And Nick has been in some of the other videos, and I've known him a very long time. He's an honest guy. He's also a brilliant engineer, fabricator, blacksmith, you name it. He can do it. So I emailed him and said, explained the situation. I said, look, it's going to be quite a lot of work. Would you be happy taking it on if I came over once a month and we did 3 or 4 days? And he goes, yeah, all right then. And a couple of weeks later he came over, picked it up. And the first weekend over there, the first thing we did was put a side stand on it, because it didn't even have a side stand at this point. Pretty rapidly we built the engine mounts for it, and I was going to start sorting the engine out. I needed to do a bit of investigation. I was pretty sure the starter setup had been removed and it was only kickstart. Upon investigation, yeah, the whole starter clutch mechanism had been pulled out. And not only that, for some reason, the starter motor, even though it was in there, had no positive bolt in it at all. Somebody just ripped that out, the starter motor, and then just shoved the starter motor back in. God only knows why. Once Nick had built the engine mounts, we put the engine back in and then started other fabrication work. One thing I wanted to do was reuse as many old parts from the old bike. So originally this is just going to be kind of, cobbled together, bit of fun, nothing spectacular. Put a seat mount in, battery box in and that sort of stuff, and that'll do. Now, once we had the engine in, Nick and I were discussing about the forward controls. I wasn't particularly happy with the stupid tube going across. I thought the whole thing looked hideous. What the previous bloke had done. But we didn't have a really good solution. So Nick just cut the tubes off, leaving the bit that was welded on. I said, oh, that's perfect. If we can put some round bar through there, we can mount the pegs off that. So that's what we did. And that kind of led to another idea of, well, why don't we build this bike for me to the standard I want, rather than it just being a bit of fun? Why don't we try and build something along the lines of a really smart brand new build? It was Nick saying, if you're going to do it properly. And I thought, yeah, you know what, why don't we do that? So the idea was still to reuse as many old parts as possible. So the sissy bar, for example, I love the look of it, but is it square at all? No, not really. All the holes are slightly out, and you can tell it's sort of handmade 30 years ago or something like that. So the idea was to try and incorporate as many old parts as we could into a new build, but at the same time make it not a show bike, but very nice bike, be better. So with that in mind, I did sort of have to rethink what we were going to do to the bike. So originally we were just going to use an old seat pan. I thought, well, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather have a sprung seat on it. Now, the good thing about making the decision with building this for me was I could have all the controls set up for one-arm riding. So normally everything's a bit of a compromise when you're modifying another bike to be used with one hand. So for example, the fuel tap is normally on the left hand side, and often the ignition switch can be in the wrong place for you, or the light switch is in the wrong place for you, or the choke. So on this one I thought, well, I wanted to set it up for me. So I wanted to make sure the fuel tap was on the right, the ignition switch was on the right, and I was going to do the usual trick with Harley ignition switch and put the light switch in that. So it'd just be controls on the right handlebar, and any other controls that I needed to be on the right hand side as well. as you can see in the pictures, the fuel tap is on the right, and when we built the battery box, we built it so the ignition switch was on the right hand side as well. Now this build, as you can tell by the pictures, was done outside. Sometimes it was very, very hot and we were absolutely boiling out there, and as the build went on it got colder and colder, and yeah, I was out there working on the engine in November outside, and not very nice at all. I had lots of little touches that I wanted to do to the bike. For example, I was going to run it without a front mudguard. Now, if you run a single disc bike without a front mudguard and you haul on the brakes really hard, what happens? Your forks twist. So I got Nick to make up a fork brace for it, and we also made up custom speedo mount, which was nice, and also a custom coil mount. Also, when we were setting this up for me, things like the seat mounts, we set that all up properly and made sure we were happy with the angles. We also built stuff like a support bracket for the carbs, because the carbs are obviously not running airbox. And Nick did some really good work on the forward controls, making some really nice trip custom adjustable controls. We also notched the rear mudguard so the chain had plenty of clearance. One of the last things that was done during the dry build, as it were, was the exhaust system. Nick made all this out of stainless, and as he said, you know, for his first attempt to welding up a stainless exhaust system, he did all right. I'm well happy with them, and they work all right. We did baffle them. By the time we got into October, November, it was really my turn with the engine. Every time Nick was busy doing something, I'd be scraping more paint and corrosion off the old alley engine because it was in a shocking state. And then come November, Nick was out for the day and it was my turn to spray the engine. Not the most fun jobs in November, and the paint did take rather a long time to dry, but you know, it came out all right. Now towards the end of the build, there was only a few minor tweaks left. We drilled the bars for internal wiring, so that looked quite nice, and also decided to delug the fork tube because it originally had been set up for a twin disc. Nick spun that up in the lathe and machined all that off. So you're probably thinking, well, what have you been doing? Well, Nick's been doing all that fabrication work. Well, I'm the one that's been running around doing all the research and deciding what I want done and finding out about paint schemes and you know, a lot of behind the scenes work. So I had done a lot of looking online and I knew what I wanted. I didn't want there to really be any black on the bike if I could help it. The tank, yeah, that's fine, black with nice blue flames, and the engine, fine. The rest of the bike, no, I wanted the whole bike to look, well, not bright, but light, I guess. So I had a chat to Daz at Banbury Powder Coating and explained what I wanted and how I wanted fading, and he goes, yeah, we can do that, that's no problem. And I thought, oh, okay. So I had to make a run up into Birmingham with all the chrome bits and get all the chrome stripped off, and then headed off to Central Wheels, drop the wheels off, get them rebuilt with new spokes, and then on the way back I dropped in Banbury Powder Coating, dropped a frame off with boxes of bits, and Daz sent me some pictures through of progress and what it was looking like, and I thought, ooh, blimey, that's looking pretty impressive, that should do the job. While that was being done, I did one last visit to Nick's to finish the engine off with the obligatory pike nut, as you can see, and I don't think I did too bad a job. I mean, you know, it's kind of rattle canny, but considering what it looked like before. So in January I picked up the frame from Banbury Powder Coating with all the bits and then spent a weekend tapping out all the holes. But it was worth it. I thought the frame looked pretty spectacular. In fact, I still do. I think it's got a very nice, unique look to it. So I contacted Nick and we arranged a long weekend in middle of February to put the rolling chassis back together, plonk the engine in, and hopefully get it back to mine and get it out of Nick's hair, because I'm sure he was quite fed up with it by then. The rolling chassis went together pretty easily. Had to put new head bearings in, new wheel bearings in, etc, etc. Engine, well, that was a great big lump and there was much swearing involved, but it did go in eventually without any damage being caused. The weather wasn't that kind to us on one of the days, so we actually finished putting it together in his container, but it all went together, and by the end of the day it gone together so quickly that I said, well, the weather's nice tomorrow, if you want, we'll take it back to mine and it'll be gone. So I'm sure it was very grateful at this point to be shot of it. So strapped it down on the back of his trailer, and yep, it came home. My place was not nearly so luxurious as Nick's for working on things, so I ended up working outside through the rest of February and March, putting the bike back together. And you might think, oh, that's easy peasy. Well, yes, it's kind of bolting some stuff back together, but you still got to wire it, still got to make sure the engine's all serviced. Had to set up all the hand controls, of course, for the disability. So it took about a month for me to finish it off, basically just working weekends when it wasn't monsooning or too freezing cold. But it was pretty straightforward. By the end of March, yeah, I fired it up for the first time. It didn't run too bad, but I knew, it's not got an airbox on anymore. It hasn't got the right exhaust system on anymore. So it needs to go off and be set up properly. So I let it Grant over at GP Performance take it, and he set it up. After that, a couple of little test rides around, and then MOT time. Now, when it all went back together at Nick's in February, I thought, you know what, it's quite a nice looking bike. I wonder if Backstreet Heroes would be interested in it. So I did contact them and say, look, here's some of the pictures. Are you interested? And I got an email back from Nick saying, oh, yes, yep, definitely. So around the end of April, they sent a photographer out. They took some photos, and I thought, you know what? We built something quite nice here. I must admit, I'm quite impressed with it. After all that hard work, it turned out all right. Admittedly, it was a lot of hard work. Then in May, there was a Twisted Iron event on, just down the road. So took the bike to that, and that went down well. The bike today, still running, still on the road, still own it. To me, it's kind of a great work of art. That's what I like about it. You just look at it and you go, wow, yeah, that's pretty impressive. As a bike, yeah, it's not bad actually for a chopper. I mean, the seat actually works, the front suspension works, it goes. It's not a bad bike at all. Looking back at what I bought originally and what it is now, it looks completely different. I like the look of the original bike a lot. In a way, I wish it had, stayed like that. I thought it looked like a real nice old Survivor chop, but it was just too dangerous. Just no. But what we turned it into, thanks to Nick's help, I think it turned out very nice. For those of you watching the one-arm variety, is it any different riding a chopper to a standard road bike? Well, yes, it is. This particular one is very bare bones, as you can see. No indicators, no front brake light switch, no safety cutouts at all. They're all removed. So as far as electrics go, you've got a rear brake light switch, got a starter button, got a high-low beam and a horn, and that's kind of your lot. There is a neutral light and there is an oil light. But it's what it is, that's what a chopper should be in my view. Controls wise, well, it's dead easy to do. Clutch is nice and light on it. It'd be nice if it had a better front brake. It's no different from any other Japanese bike of that era. They're easy to modify. They're not rocket science, it's all mechanical engineering. The wiring's dead simple. So, if you want to do a chopper, I would say. So I'm going to end the video on this picture. Now, why this one? Well, it gives you an idea of what it's like riding with just the one working hand. As you can see, the forward controls, bog standard, brake on the right, gearbox on the left, and if you go higher up, you can then start to see the changes. So on the left handlebar, all I've got is a mirror, and my hand is velcroed onto the handlebar. So velcro on the glove, velcro on the grip. Make sure your grip's glued on, obviously. All that sliding off. And that's all there is on the left bar. On the right hand side, remember this is a very simple bike, so you've literally stock throttle, standard front brake, and a clutch lever underneath, and that's all there is at the right hand side. On the clutch perch, there's a starter button wired in, and then if you look further down the bars, you can see where the high low beam the horn is, and that's it. I custom made the clutch cable, custom made throttle cable, and custom made the brake line, and that's all you need to do. You don't have to have an auto clutch, you don't have to do away with the clutch, don't have to do away with your front brake or any of that nonsense. You can use all the standard Japanese stuff, or if you're on a Harley, well, standard Harley stuff. It's as easy as that. And all this talk online about, oh, you've got to use this type of auto box or this type of auto clutch and these types of controls. No, this is all standard Japanese stuff on there. So that's the standard Kawasaki master cylinder setup. That's a £10 clutch lever off eBay. And that's it. As easy as that. As I ended one of my other videos, if I can do it, so can you. But hopefully this will inspire you to go out and build your own.